Hi there, and welcome to today's webinar, Leading with Vision, How PLCs Drive High Achievement in a Top-Performing Utah School District. My name is Kendall Hunter. I'm the Director of Marketing at Otis. I'm very excited to be your moderator for this webinar. Like most of you here with me today, my background's in education. I was a middle school special education teacher, reading specialist in the Chicagoland area where I'm based. Sunny here today. I hope wherever you're joining us from, you're seeing a little spring weather. Today's webinar will feature a discussion between two leaders who together have over 55 years of experience in K-12 education. I've never been able to say that on a webinar before, so that's pretty incredible. I will introduce them to you all shortly, but first, just a few housekeeping items while you get settled. I mentioned that I'm with Otis, today's webinar sponsor. If Otis is new to you, welcome. We are a K-12 assessment, data, and insight solution that brings all of your student data into one place, making it very easy for everyone, from educators, administrators, to your PLCs, to use data to really inform those instructional strategies and decisions, align assessments, monitor student progress. So that's just a little bit about Otis, but let's talk about some technical notes to ensure that you have the best experience during the webinar today. If the console freezes at any point or you're having audio trouble, just go ahead and refresh your browser and you'll be allowed right back in. Within the webinar console, you will see there's a resource list. We've curated some resources for you there on Wasatch, the district that we're going to be discussing today, as well as some other PLC resources for your continued learning. Should you have any questions for our speakers today, you can type them in the Q&A box. We will have dedicated time for questions towards the end of the session, so just tee those up for us and we'll discuss later. The group chat is a great place to chat with us during the webinar. Feel free to say hello now, introduce yourself, tell us where you're joining us from. Anyone from Utah or Nashville, where our speakers are from? Tennessee, I should say. Finally, this session will be recorded, and our partner, District Administration, will send you an email with a link to the on-demand video tomorrow. So if you have to step away or you're managing a few things at once and want to revisit this, don't worry. We're recording, and we'll get that sent over to you. So with that, let's meet our speakers. I'm just going to do a quick introduction for you all, and then I'll hand it off to them. First up today, we have Dr. Mark Edwards. Dr. Edwards served as a superintendent for 25 years and is a national leader in digital innovation who has authored not one, not two, but 4 books. Dr. Edwards was named AASA National Superintendent of the Year and North Carolina Superintendent of the Year back in 2013. Pretty incredible. And also led the first ever district-wide one-to-one laptop program in the nation. Has earned numerous national honors and was even recognized by President Obama for his leadership. So we are very excited to have Dr. Edwards with us today. Our main speaker for today, Superintendent Paul Sweat, has over 33 years of service in Wasatch County School District, which is in Utah, rising from middle school math teacher to superintendent. Superintendent Sweat is deeply committed to collaboration. You'll hear a lot about that today, and really inspiring a shared vision of excellence, all of which have propelled the success of their PLCs. During Superintendent Sweat's tenure, enrollment surged by 34%, and the district saw significant gains in literacy, math, and science, improving in some areas by up to 30%. So there's certainly a lot we can learn from what they're doing over there. On a personal note, I did have the pleasure of meeting with Superintendent Sweat leading up to this event, and I can truly say that he has a profound love and appreciation for his fellow educators and students within their community. Superintendent Sweat is retiring after this year, truly an incredible 3-decade-long career. So we're very honored to have him with us today. And through the conversation that you'll hear, really learn more about how leading with trust and vision makes a difference, how you can empower your teachers with data, and how leaders can really commit to that collaboration in PLCs to drive that impact on student learning. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Dr. Edwards and Superintendent Sweat so you can hear more from them directly around exactly what is happening in Wasatch County that's making such an impact. We're excited to listen and learn from you both today.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thanks, Kendall. Thanks, Kendall. And this is an exciting time, and I really glad that any audience members that are tuned in, I think you're really going to enjoy this. And this is an exciting story. This is the kind of story to me that is about public education in America. Paul, as Kendall said, Paul has been an outstanding superintendent. He's been recognized locally and in Utah and nationally. He was featured in Administrator Magazine in January. He was profiled, and just the story, the great story about Wasatch. And Paul, I know that our audience, there's a lot of school leaders, teacher leaders, district leaders that really want to learn and grow from this experience. And I think, just starting off with, how did you come about with the vision for Wasatch, and also building that vision and the trust? And again, as we were talking a little bit earlier, it takes time. So Paul, tell us a little bit about that, the story of building that vision for Wasatch and then building that trust to put it all together.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's an honor for me to be here with you and with Kendall. I think I first was introduced to Mark by a mutual friend in kind of the digital education world, when we were all kind of scrambling to take advantage of the leverage that technology provides us as educators, and was able to do a visit out to Mark's school district, and just feel like that Mark's been so gracious in his sharing and has been helpful to me as a superintendent, and also to our entire school district. He's been out here. He spoke to our teachers, and just one of my true mentors, and a leader that I look up to. So it's a great honor for me to be here on the webinar today. And as far as vision goes in Wasatch, I think there's a story that helps explain what we consider vision to be, and I think vision needs to be kept pretty simple and to the point, and really what we strive to do here in Wasatch, if there's something that we are going to undertake, if there's something that we're going to move forward with, we always start with wanting excellence. We want to be the very best that we can be at whatever it is we undertake as a district. And I think as I was asked to be the superintendent here in Wasatch, we got together. I got all my principals together. We were a fairly small district. This was probably about 20 leaders and myself. And one summer day, we got together downstairs, and I had asked our data guy. We had one data guy in the district at the time, and I had asked him to put together a chart that showed where Wasatch fell in the state of Utah. In the state of Utah, we have 41 public school districts. And we wanted to know where we were at. We had been studying Jim Collins's book, Good to Great, and we bought into this idea that we had always been a good district, and Jim Collins's premise that good is the enemy of great rang true with us, and we knew that the first thing we had to do if we wanted to improve as a district, if we wanted to become better at an educational institution and help more and more kids be competent and be able to demonstrate competence and be above the bar and have a chance at the next level and a chance at life, that we had to start with this very important piece, and that was confront the brutal facts. And so we had that confront the brutal facts meeting on a summer day, and downstairs here in the district office here in Wasatch. Our district office is it's formerly a 3-story elementary school, and it has a lot of history. It was started, the construction on this building was started in the late 1800s, and it's built out of these rather large sandstone blocks of of rock that are mined out of a local quarry here, and we got together one day in our little building that we're so proud of, and we walked into this room and we sat down and we said, okay, Mr. Zabel, who was our data guy, let's see it. What did you come up with? And we, math, science, and reading, those three important areas, he put them all three up on the board at once, and we started taking a look at where we fit in the state of Utah, and we were shocked. We were shocked that in this little district up here in the tops of the mountains, that we thought we were doing good things, and we were accomplishing what we needed to, and as we looked at this chart, we were very disappointed. We were at best middle of the pack, and in some instances below middle of the pack, and we did not see ourselves. In that manner. And so I often say about that meeting that it didn't require me to become mad or upset or show too much emotions, because the principals took that role on very well themselves. They were very upset. They were, are you kidding me? And as they looked up on the board, and how could we only be doing this well? And so on that day, and following other other tenets of Jim Collins, we started setting some goals, and those goals led us to a pretty good place where we said, where do we think we can really finish? And you start setting goals, and sometimes goals and aspirations maybe can be two different things. But as we talked about, do we want to be in the top 10? Do we want to be in the top 5? Do we want to be top 3? And at the end of the day, no one was really comfortable with anything other than being number one and fighting to be number one. And we all know that it's important to set your goals high and to reach for the stars. And that's what happened on that day. And there was a lot of resolute people that walked out of that room that day that had made a pact with one another that we were going to do better, and we were going to require the excellence that we kind of thought we had been doing in the past, and we were going to be guided by the data. We were going to be guided by the data. We were going to take this kind of we were trying to focus on the whole professional learning community model, and I think we kind of had the building blocks in place, but we hadn't really got down to the nuts and bolts of really following the data as yet. That was a turning point in that day. And the vision in the district became very simple. And I think maybe there were some other things that were written or published, but our vision from that day on was as we compare ourselves to other districts, that's the only way we can really measure how we're doing, is to compare ourselves against other districts in the same state. We set those goals high, and we made a commitment to do the very best that we could.
When you think back during those years, and one thing I think it's important to note is that your tenure at Wasatch, having that stability for the district, and it really all across the United States, you'll see lots of turnover, but having that stability, but setting that vision is one thing. And obviously I've had a chance to meet a lot of your team, the leaders there, and you're exactly right. What a great synergy of team leaders. But then building trust, Paul, with all the teachers and the community, and it takes time. And you were asking a lot. It's not just saying do your best. It's saying let's do our best and let's be the best. So how did you go about building that trust? And I'd like you to think about, if school administrators are part of the audience today, district administrators and teachers, but building trust is so important. How did you go about it, Paul?
Well, I I think that we often talk about teachers, and in the realm of before they can really teach their students in the most effective way, they have to let those students know how much they care about them. And there's lots of different ways. There are old sayings that we've all heard, and in that area. And before students are really ready to learn from a teacher, they have to know that their teacher cares about them, and they have to know that their teacher, and a word that we've not been scared to use around here, and that we've learned from others, including yourself, Mark, is we're not afraid to use the word love. And a good teacher loves their students. Well, I think a good leader has to love the adults that they're leading. So if that's a principal, this principal has to love the teachers. The principal certainly has to care about those teachers and be willing to do anything they can for those teachers. We have a little saying in our district that we've been using the last year. We call it love, service, and gratitude. And we think those three things are so powerful. And I think we've proven that they're powerful in the way that we've chosen to be transformational leaders, or more importantly, servant leaders. And so I would say that it's taken some time, but I think that currently and throughout the journey, the teachers in Wasatch County know that the leaders care about them, that the leaders would do anything for them, and that there is a certain amount of love that's present, and not only for our students, but for our teachers and for our principals. I hope that as a superintendent, that every one of my principals, assistant principals, and other leaders here in the district, and even including all of the teachers, I hope that they would know that there's not a thing out there that I would not do for them if they needed some help in the district, or even without. If I got a call on a Saturday afternoon and somebody was in a bind, they know that I would probably drop what I'm doing and come and help them. And I think that sets the foundation for trust. And then from there, I don't want to leave this subject without mentioning that I also think that you have to show them that you care about them in a very practical way, and that is help them with their wages. And I think it's an important lesson that I've learned, is that a milkshake coupon can only go so far, and to work with a board and maybe doing a truth and taxation hearing is how we do it here in Utah, to go to our community and say, hey, we'd like to pay our teachers a little more. And if our community is on board and we are able to bump a levy here and there and add some pay to our teachers, that shows them a real commitment, a practical commitment. And I think that's a piece of the puzzle that has to be present. And otherwise, the rest of it might ring a little hollow. So if you're doing the emotional, physical part of showing teachers that you care, and you're giving them all the training that they need and all those other things, and you're helping them out with their salaries, where you can and when you can, and then I think it all comes together, and this level of trust becomes a very real thing, and your students benefit from it. So,
Paul, I think I'm so glad to hear you talk about love. It's one of those things that I think there's a lot of sometimes hesitancy, but I think anyone who has been at a great school and with great teachers and you see love everywhere. There's a sense of respect, appreciation, kindness. And the other thing, Paul, when I was out visiting with you in Wasatch, when you have that sense of trust, and I'm so glad, I want to thank you, Paul, for talking about teacher salaries and wages more than ever. Love is very, very powerful, but bread on the table is pretty powerful too. And I think it's so important that your leadership is that sense of lifting with love, but also lifting with the practicality of let's take care of our employees. And so I think that's so important. And, one of the things that somebody was asking me about when I'd been out at Wasatch, what I thought, and I said, well, it's like a great big family. When they had their convocation and, hundreds of teachers and everybody, it was a homecoming. But you do, Paul, I think it's great to see an entire school district that has that vision, that trust, and that sense of, as you said, you've got to show people you care about them.
Well, thank you, and it's been a powerful force for us, and we definitely are fortunate that we've got a great team, and we've got a great staff here. We have about 500 teachers in our district now, and that's a more than we're used to. But I think we've still tried to hold on to that small district feel where people care about one another, and we talk a lot about gratitude. We talk a lot about gratitude in the fact that we get to be a part of the greatest institution that I believe that America has, and that's public education. And I think it's such a powerful thing that no matter where you're at in this country, you're standing inside of a public school district, and you can take your kids to school for pretty much for free. And yeah, there's going to be some fees depending on this and that, but that is such a powerful thing for America. And I have so much respect for human beings that choose to spend their life toiling away in public education to make sure that we give some power and some life to the American dream of upward mobility. And any child, we don't care who they are, where they came from, what they look like, who their parents are. We're here, and we get to be a lifeline to those kids, and that's something we need to be grateful for. And we have a little thing in our district where we've often talked about, every morning you get out of bed, you jump in the car, you head off to school, and you consider how lucky we are to be involved in this process, and that gratitude goes such a long ways towards tying in with our vision and with our trust. And the old Covey books, The Speed of Trust, it's a real concept. It's a very real thing. Trust definitely helps you work at a much faster pace.
Paul, one of the things that I know that we're excited about talking about today is how Wasatch empowered teachers with data. And I know in talking to you and hearing you describe how the teams really embraced using data. Talk to us about this and how the teachers, because you don't achieve the gains that you did in Wasatch, that the Wasatch team did, unless you are using data and information to drive the instruction. So tell us about how that came about.
Well, I think it started with the DeFore framework, the professional learning community framework, and by that I mean things like small groups of teachers working together to accomplish great things for kids, and the early out time where teachers have that 1 hour each week to look at the data and see who's doing well and who's not doing well. If that's handled correctly and those teachers are looking at the right data, we found it to be such a powerful thing. And I would say this: we are agnostic as it relates to textbooks, programs, technology, apps, the latest and greatest book that's come out. All of those things are great in their own right, and they can be helpful and they can add to the conversation. But we believe that our teachers should be learning from other teachers, and those other teachers that they should be learning from should be the highest performing teachers, either in the school or in the district, and certainly in the state, and even in the country. We missed out all these years. When I started as a middle school math teacher, I was in a pod of 4 classrooms, and there was kind of this commons area in the middle, kind of an office, a shared office that we could come together in between classes, or sometimes we'd be in there before school or after school. And we talked about a lot of things, but we hardly ever discussed what we were teaching that day or that week. It was all about the football game or some of these other things. And so I think that I think we've come a long way in understanding that what we learn should come from teachers that are doing it very well. And so I think DeFore got us started in the right direction. And as we've learned more and more about how to collaborate and what to share, we have ended up saying that the wise teacher and the wise team of teachers should be using all these other things to help, but mostly what they should be doing is they should be learning from those teachers that are performing at the top of their area that they're in.
Paul, one of the great notes of your career and working in Wasatch is setting goals, but then working on those goals year after year after year, and staying true to the course, but as you set those goals, improved. I know you were sharing with me about one elementary school in Wasatch that just really climbed way up in the top 10 in the state, right up close, a tremendous gain. And the teachers in that school really did exactly what you said. They understood how to learn from each other, and then they understood how to share and use that data and information. And I know, Paul, the district's a great story, but then you have individual schools that are great stories in themselves of achieving that level. And by the way, I think our audience will find interesting to know, during that 9 years of your ascension in that work, that the district grew in size, the district grew in diversity, and the district grew in poverty. And yet in every way, the student achievement, the improvement, and let me also mention that Wasatch also has outstanding co-curricular activities and outstanding clubs, and has been recognized. But Paul, when you see all that, and you see that, and that I can't remember the name of the elementary school. It's got a neat name, but I know you know which one I'm talking about. But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've had some phenomenal growth in all of our elementary schools, and I think that I think the elementary school that you're speaking of, we had a great leader there, and we definitely have there's not a leader in this district that we don't consider a great leader in their own right. And like happens in the PLC world, we find out in, the group of 4 or 5 teachers, it's not one teacher that's at the top of every subject or at the top of every unit that you might be on. We found that different teachers excel at different things, and that's the power of the sharing and those common formative assessments, and those teachers come together, they build those assessments together, they believe in them, they're the ones that helped write the questions and put that together, and then as they all go out to teach their own students, they get back together the next Monday and compare the data, and oh my gosh, you're 10 to 20 points higher than me. Well, how did you do that? And certainly, that's gone on throughout the district. But we did have an elementary school that really soared to the top, and I think that the growth, the 30, the 40, 50% gains in some cases that took place there would go back and lend itself to the vision and the trust of what we were trying to accomplish. And they specifically did some things with kind of empowering the students to be a part of this whole process that I think is really helped them, and put the students in charge of their own education. And as that kind of kicked in, that particular school, we look at different metrics, but in one metric and in one independent analysis, that school was ranked in the top 5 in the state of Utah, and we had another school in the top 20 and others that had made tremendous growth. But those there's 855 schools in the state of Utah. So for those to rise to the point that they did showed that our system was working, and we, the data doesn't lie. That's what we like to say around here. The data doesn't lie, and we're continually on the hunt. And now, even on more of a statewide level, to find those highest performing teams, and that's who we want our teachers to learn from. The principals, we have some great instructional leaders as principals, but it's not their job to teach it's not their job to teach lesson plans, curriculum, that sort of thing with our teams. It's their job to find the highest performing team wherever that team might be, and then get our teachers in front of that team to learn from them. So our system really revolves around teachers learning from teachers, and that I think is what has driven our achievement to the top.
Paul, one of the things I think is so exciting, I know the audience today will really value from hearing this. You've asked teachers in Wasatch to embrace using digital resources, to embrace and really step forward using data, to understand PLCs and collaboration. So you're asking a lot. That's a lot. A lot of districts struggle with one of those, much less all of them. And yet, at the same time, I think my observation and most observations is that morale is sky high. People are proud of their work. There's a sense of, we did this together. But when you're asking so much, how is it that morale is high and people, obviously success breeds success, but then at the same time, that's a lot to ask a teacher to come in and learn this, but yet that's exactly what you did. And how can morale be so high, Paul, when you're asking teachers to do so much?
Well, it's been as we talked earlier, it's been a lot of different components, and I think trying to help our teachers with pay. Our cost of living here in this valley has gone up, and we've tried to make a real effort. We've had just such a tremendously courageous school board that has asked the public on more than one occasion to help our teachers with their wages. We treat our teachers like professionals. We give them the data that they need, and then we always say to our teachers, if there's something out there that you need to be more successful, something you found somewhere else, let's figure out a way to do that. And we've all kind of been, blessed since the pandemic. There's lots of there's been lots of pots of money that's come from the federal government and from the state and other places where you can tap into those funds, and you can do what it takes to get the job done. But I think that well, I'll stop there, Mark. I'll let you go to a follow-up. But some of the things that I would like to talk about, before we're done, and maybe I can just go ahead and jump in, Mark, if that's okay.
Jump in there, Paul. Please do.
Let's not forget. Let's go back to the digital part of it. The digital part of it is a powerful tool, and it had to be handled correctly. And we started like a whole lot of other districts where we just threw some iPads in the hands of some students and hoped all went well. We did no teacher training, and that was a colossal failure. And that's when we went back to the drawing board. We took our time. That's when we met a man by the name of Scott Drossis that was working for Pearson Education at the time, and he introduced us to you, and we did the visits. We went out to some of the highest performing school districts as it related to technology and how you can leverage technology. And technology it's a very important tool. And the old SAMR model that taught us how to go from just substitution up to the top, where we're actually using those devices, helping kids create and higher order thinking and deeper levels of understanding and all those things that went with what we call digital conversion. And I think we stole that. Title from you. Really did a lot to help us drive our achievement forward. It took our professional learning community model and our vision and the trust piece and all that goes with it, and it put it on steroids. It just really breathed a lot of life into it. And when the pandemic hit, I mean, Wasatch, like a lot of other districts, I believe here in the state, we were about the middle of March when the governor came out and said we're shutting down schools. And at the time, we had an iPad for every elementary child, but they didn't take them home. And the secondary students, they had a laptop, and they did take those laptops home. And we had been down the road a little bit and had a year or two of kind of training to show how that all worked, and at least had a year or two under our belts, and we got a tip at 12 o'clock noon on a Friday that the governor was shutting down school. And by 3 o'clock, when those elementary kids got on the bus, they had an iPad under their arm. And so as they went home, instead of us trying to scramble and how are we going to teach them, and we heard of lots of districts building packets and sending packets home and all those types of things, we were able to just continue teaching through that device and through some of these tools that were available, and that really helped us. So I think trying to be up to speed on anything that we know that will help student achievement. I think I've spent my whole life as a principal and a superintendent trying to move the achievement needle. And there were so many things in the beginning that I felt like we were promised, like things like, if you have really good school culture, your achievement's going to go way up. And if you follow this program, achievement's going to go up. And there's this new book out, or there's a new guy we have to go listen to. I didn't find any of those things to help with student achievement going up. I think you can have a fantastic school culture and still not see any movement in achievement. The only way student achievement goes up is if you're paying specific attention to it. If you're looking at the data week in and week out and capitalizing on those teaching strategies and those student activities that actually help with learning. And we're all into this very specific tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, but we have to follow the data. We have to follow the data, state standard, learning targets, common formative assessments, all those things are what really organizes us to do our best as educators and to raise student achievement. And we were acknowledged as we got to the into the pandemic, and there's a study out there that I think I've shared with you before that Harvard and Stanford did together. And we got a call one day post-pandemic from a reporter, and they said, "Hey, we were just looking at this study. We didn't really even know it existed." And Wasatch was the only school district in the state of Utah to have gains in both math and reading during the pandemic. And there's been kind of a follow-up now as far as how are we doing since the pandemic. And once again, we're a grade level to a grade level 1.5 up from the post-pandemic levels. And that's another area that I think we've struggled in a little bit as a country, and we've been able to overcome that through the system that we have.
Yeah, Paul, one of the things, I'm glad that you shared that, because that is a very powerful, significant reference point for data for all school districts and schools in the country. I had a chance to see that report, and then to see that one of the very few districts in the entire nation, not just Utah, but the entire nation, that showed growth during the pandemic. And I think your foresight with the digital conversion, also building that collaborative culture, because that sense of we're going to do this and do it well. One of the things, Paul, that keeps kind of showing up, we talk about Wasatch, is this attitude or disposition of we are going to do this, determination. And I've heard it from, in talking to your leadership team, but also teachers. And you don't achieve the results that Wasatch has and during the pandemic. But where does that come from, Paul? I know that trust and the culture and the love, but that can do, and because it's really hard to build that synergy where everyone is, we're going to do this. But that's exactly what you see in Wasatch. How does that happen?
Well, I think that it starts as an attitude, and it starts as an attitude of if we're going to do this, we're going to be the best at it, and it starts with teachers having self-efficacy. It starts with administrators having self-efficacy, and we can be pretty simple. To me, we keep the definition of self-efficacy pretty simple here, and we just talk about this is our own belief in our ability to do good, to enact change, to help kids succeed. And so as we work on our culture, including this great teacher efficacy, that they know if they're here and they're in our classrooms, and we want to draw people that believe in themselves and believe in their ability to do good. And what we find is most all of us can believe in ourselves if we're given the right tools, and if we're given the tools that we need. We can't just pull it out of thin air. We've got to have a program to follow, and the PLC model and how that works, and our focus on data. And if it's reading, bringing in the best reading experts to teach us how to teach reading and all the different things. It is certainly an attitude, and it's an attitude that is prevalent here in the district. And I think as new teachers come here, they buy into that. We talk a lot about Hattie's research, that I think there's probably not an educator that hasn't at least heard about Hattie's research. And when you look at the top of the Hattie chart, the number one factor in predicting a student success that has the highest change effect is teacher estimation of student skill. Well, we just think that's, simply put, we want our teachers to have high expectations. We want them to have high expectations of their students. And we have some examples here in Wasatch that we use, and we talk a lot about it doesn't matter where the student comes from. It doesn't matter what their former education record is. It doesn't matter if they're new to our country, if they're new to our language. Teacher estimation of skill is where we start. And so we help our teachers understand that part of our culture, and our teachers have been fantastic. I mean, a lot of this stuff they teach back to us as administrators, and we learn from them and we spread it around. And that is when those kids walk into the classroom, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter who they are. All they're looking at is a face and a child, and they're saying, I am going to expect a lot from this student, and I'm going to expect a lot of dedication and hard work, and I'm going to accomplish that by motivating this student, by loving this student, by caring about this student. And in the end, I think that's what drives us, is that high expectation. And I think every parent in this country should go to back to school night and look their child's teacher in the eye and say to that teacher, don't you dare expect anything less out of my child than you do everyone else's. And that's how we see that parent-teacher relationship working. And it's something we talk a lot about, and it has become part of our culture. And you see it in athletic programs, and I've not been afraid over the years to do some comparative athletic comparisons to academics. And the football coaches had this figured out way before we did, as far as PLCs. If they had a team a couple of states over that, or even a county over, somebody in their own league that had a new offense, and they were just really ripping it up with this new offense, what did the football coaches do? They all jumped in a car and they drove over there and watched practice. And now we're saying, hey, we got to do that as it relates to academics. And if there's a team over 2 counties over, and a 3rd grade team, and they've taken a bunch of ELL students and they've got them at the top of their school or the top of their state, we got to jump in a car, we got to buzz over there, and we got to see what they're doing. We got to figure it out. And I think just that attitude that we not only want to be state champs in wrestling and basketball and swimming and all those things, we want to be state champs in reading. We want to be state champs in math. We want to be state champs, because that's really why we're here. That's why we exist. And we think those two can go hand in hand. And when I use an example of my own son that was a state championship wrestler when he was a junior in high school. He won the state tournament, and the next year this other wrestler moved into his weight class from another school that was a 3-time state champion going free. And we got to the state tournament, and by golly, my son beat that kid. And how did he beat that? How did he beat this 3-timer going for their 4th? Those guys just don't get beat, right? And we talk about the fact that his wrestling coach didn't look at my son and say, oh, that's too bad that other kid moved into your weight class. Second probably will be pretty good and respectable, and just do your best and keep it close. That's not what the Wasatch County employee said to my son. What he said to my son is, we're going to win that match, and we're going to do everything we can throughout the year to prepare and to win that match, because that's our expectation. And if we can somehow pull some of that and infuse it into the academic program, isn't that a wonderful thing? Isn't that an awesome thing? That our biology teacher thinks just like the football coach. Our next assessment's coming up on Friday, and the community's coming out to watch, and we better be ready. And we better teach our kids what they need to know. And if we're doing that from biology assessment to biology assessment, just like the football coaches are doing it from one Friday night to the next Friday night, then we have that sense of urgency that you talked about. And shouldn't we be way more urgent about academics and kids not only knowing what they need to know, but being able to demonstrate that on some sort of exam or presentation or whatever it might be? I think that's what we've tried to tap into, is make academics more urgent, and make our help our teachers, give them all the tools they need, believe in them, trust in what they're doing. And man, magic happens when all that's in place.
Paul, I think you've got that championship academic district humming. But you know what? I think we want to have some time for some questions. And I know Kendall's going to jump in now and has a service announcement. But again, Paul, what a thrilling story to hear about. And by the way, I do want to tell our audience, Paul was also a state champion wrestling. So, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. But Kendall, I know you need to jump in with a service announcement, and then we're going to have a chance for questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you. Service announcement, or just we're going to share some tools that Wasatch educators are using for their common formative assessments. We are going to jump into questions, and I want to thank you all for the fantastic engagement, including Stephanie, one of our attendees here, who has teed us up with a ton of great questions. So thank you so much for that. Before we dive into those, I just want to mention a little bit more about Otis, today's webinar sponsor. In Otis, teachers can deliver common formative assessments, and really they can do that by building their own assessments or using assessments from our library, where we have thousands of ready-to-use assessments available. When we think about the conversation today and really having that temperature check on where students are at, because how do you know where to go if you don't know where they are? That's where these assessments really come into play. Some of the assessments that we have available are from programs that teachers are already using with their students, like Bridges in Mathematics, Amplify, Mystery Science. There are a lot of options, something for everyone. So you certainly don't have to reinvent the wheel on your journey to kind of pinpointing where students are. There's a lot there for you. All assessments in Otis can also be aligned to learning standards. I saw someone chatting in that they have a standards-driven culture. I love to hear that. It really allows you to see how students are progressing towards the learning goals. And then you can share those assessments across your team to unite around a common data point. As a result of delivering assessments in Otis, teachers can really see who's mastering the content, who's not, who maybe needs a little extra support, and then discuss those new strategies. And at Otis, we really just think when you can move away from compiling, organizing, putting together spreadsheets for team meetings and PLC conversations, you can focus more on what the data is telling you. And that's really why Otis is such a powerful partner for PLCs, or really any team who's looking to gauge student learning with a variety of assessments. But with that, as Mark said, I will close my service announcement here, and let's do some questions. So I think you both might be able to weigh in on these. Superintendent Sweat, a couple of these were very clearly for you, but Dr. Edwards, I know you have some great experience as well. The first question here, and as we get into these, I'm just going to change our screen here to Wasatch, their district motto, because I think this really just kind of summarizes everything Superintendent Sweat has shared throughout. But one of the questions here is, how long did it take for you to build trust? And what are some examples of things that you did to build trust? Superintendent Sweat, that question was for you.
Well, as a superintendent, speaking as a superintendent, you know, my primary work is with the principals, and then you know, hopefully the things that we do as a leadership group, then you know, they in turn do with their teams of teachers, and and I don't want to say trickle down, because a lot of times, you know, it trickles up, and we learn a lot from our principals, and we learn a lot from our teachers, and if we're listening to them, it all kind of works out. So I think that taking time with one another, we're all human beings, and we do believe in spending time together as a leadership team, as a faculty, as individual academic teams in the building. We will spend time, we'll work hard, we'll play hard. We like to make those human connections, and we think then what we're trying to accomplish is much more powerful if we can share some of this love, service, and gratitude with one another, and move in that direction.
Thank you so much. A couple other questions here. Dr. Edwards, anything you want to add around your experience with building trust in your own work as a former superintendent?
I think Paul just encapsulated it so well, and just throughout this whole time today of just showing how much you care about people. And I will say this: when I first became a principal, the best advice I ever had was somebody said, go to every classroom every day and tell every teacher thank you. And I started doing that. And I know that Paul has inculcated that in Wasatch. And I think that when leaders show that sense of gratitude for other leaders and it just works so well.
I love that. Something as simple as just going and saying hi to everyone. Something we could all take away and implement tomorrow, no doubt. A little bit more of a technical question for you, Superintendent Sweat, but we do have an attendee who's wondering how often your district holds their PLC meetings, and then about how long are they? So just kind of looking for more insight into like the logistics, if you're able to share any more about frequency.
It's once a week, and they're 1 hour long. And, you know, nothing's to be discussed in those meetings except for the examination of data and then sharing of teaching strategies. And, you know, that's very simplistic, and we have a lot of teams doing, you know, different things. But that's an overview of the time we spend with those teacher teams working together. We also did something during the pandemic. We added a second day in between the terms. So we've always had 1 day of, I think that's fairly standard around the country, where you have that day between the terms that the kids stay home, and teachers do a little wrap up for the previous term and preparation for the next. And we now have 2 days. We've built a calendar that has 2 days between each term, and it really gives those teacher teams time to plan for the upcoming term, and have time with one another. And so I think that's a pretty good overview of how we do that.
Yes, for sure. And I wish we had an infinite amount of time, because I bet we could all just continue sprinkling some more questions at you. I'm going to ask just like one or two more here. I know we're just about over time, and I want to respect both of your obligations. We did have one question that I do think is important to touch on, and it's just around creating consistency in achievement. You talked a little bit about this during the session around being like tool agnostic and encouraging, you know, teachers to use what works. But do you have any suggestions for administrators who are hoping to create more consistency and achievement across their schools, on maybe where they can start, or just what you've done in the past to address inconsistencies? Excuse me.
I think I would make sure that each team has some common goals that they've set. What are their goals for their students this year? It's great to have a district goal. It's great to have a district vision. It's much more important for each individual team to have their own goal that they have set without administrators present, and then assist them in providing up-to-date data, and also assist them in getting out to see what other teams are doing that are performing well in that same area.
That's a great suggestion.
Kendall, one thing I just tag on what Paul was just saying, that
Please.
and he's already talked about this when he was talking about his coaches going to scout other people and his team scouting other. He didn't. Paul just didn't drive to the next district. He drove across the country in a van from Wasatch to Mooresville, North Carolina, and it wasn't a luxury van. It was a hard riding van. But that gives, I think that's another indication of that sense of urgency. But I also think that principals have to figure out, when you're trying to get that consistency, and a teacher may need a little bit of help, give them time to go observe in other classrooms so they can see it firsthand. And the other thing, I one time I had a principal who said, I want every one of my new teachers to see 2 or 3 great teachers, not good teachers, but great teachers. And he said, fortunately, we have them all here. They're in this school. So I think creating that sense of, and Paul's talked about it all this entire session, you keep providing opportunities to help teachers grow together.
Very well said. Well, I can't thank you two enough for having this conversation, for us all to be a part of and learn from your expertise and decades of service in education to your community. So just thank you so much, Superintendent Sweat, for talking us through your experience, your background, just where you've seen success and how you support the work of teachers who work with students every day. And Dr. Edwards, thank you for the conversation as well. I do want to hand it back to district administration just for a few closing notes here before the webinar ends. If you'd like to learn more about Otis, we're at otus.com, and I will hand it off to Stephen Blackburn from district administration for just a few closing words. But thank you everyone for taking time to be here with us today. We truly appreciate you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kendall. And I'm just going to quickly say thank you everyone for joining us today. And I do see there were quite a few questions we didn't get to today, which is not a problem. We at DA will be sharing them with our partners at Otis, so they'll get back to your questions after today's event. And actually, if any other questions do come to mind, continue putting those in the Ask Question box at the bottom of your screen. Like I said, I'll share them with our partners at Otis. And before I go through my closing slides, I am just going to point your attention to a few things. I am going to, on your screen, you should see some related content that we referenced earlier today. There's some great resources in there for you to tackle. Also, and I'm going to leave this on your screen. It should be pushed out on your screen right now. So as I go through my closing slides, you can see the post-event survey on your screen right there. So feel free to start going through that survey as I go through those slides momentarily. But first off, I just want to give another shout out and thank you to our whole panel here, to Mark for moderating, Superintendent Sweat for telling us about his district and everything that they're doing with PLCs, and to Kendall, of course, for hosting, and of course to Otis for sponsoring. And I'd just like to take a moment to thank you, our audience, for joining us here today as well. For those of you who enjoyed our presentation, we have more webinars like this one that are provided by us here at District Administration. Also, we did mention it a few times, but for those of you who would like to watch this presentation again, or for those of you who believe that what you heard will be helpful to your colleagues at your district, and I'm sure that's very much the case, you'll be pleased to know that our team at DA, we will be sending you an email later tomorrow, and that email will include a link to that recording. So look out for that in your inboxes. So with that, again, thank you everyone. Thank you to our panelists, and of course, thank you to Otis. This was great.